Welcome to Sales of Glory, Advanced and Standard Rules with my prototype. Here we're at my prototype table. I've got a prototype wind marker, prototype ships, prototype player mat, prototype tokens, and cards. We're going to go through and run through a simulated battle of a couple of actions. First thing you want to do is in encounter, your sails are set, in my case, battle sails, as my opponent, the HMS Defense, against the Bordeaux. I'm going to play the French ship. This is the counter for that. We load our ammunition as we go into combat. It should be already loaded. We're just going to do standard round shot on both sides of the gun. You get 4 actions. So I'm going to go ahead and pick some actions. Well, the first action I'm going to pick is I think I'm going to swing around. I'm going to pick my first maneuver. I'm going to slide it under here. And I think I'm going to be able to fire my left guns. So I'm going to pick that action of fire left guns, and I'm going to slow down. So I'm going to actually pick counter that says reduce sails. Those are my 2 actions. I can pick up to 4, but I only pick 2. My opponent is doing something else. Now we have to pre-plan our second maneuver. So I'll place that here. I've already picked it, and my opponent does the same thing. First thing we do in the turn is flip over the actions. My 2 actions. A pre-movement action is to lower my sails, which I do, to minimal sails from battle sails. My opponent does just the opposite. They raise their sails to full sails. My opponent fires their right guns. I'm going to fire my left, but that doesn't happen until after movement. We now reveal our movement card. In this case, I'm at minimal sails. I'm in the green. I check the wind in the green, line up my card, move my ship, and I think I'm positioned nicely to take a shot at it. My opponent, moving to full sails, realized he needed to outmaneuver me, uses a 3 at full sails, and swings out in front of me. We now both conduct simultaneous combat. Using the range marker, we see how far away we are. I am firing only my front arc, which allows me to fire 4 tokens short range at my opponent. So I reach into the short range bag of tokens, and I pull out a 0, a 4, and a crew, done to the HMS Defense. 4 tokens of damage. Now the HMS Defense fires back. We measure the range at short range, full broadside. That's 6 tokens of damage. We reach in and pull out 6 tokens. Line them up. A 5, 4, a 3, a 0, and a crew. And a crew. Damage is done. You line it up. The first, my burden is a 5 with a 5. It goes into the first box, completely filling up that box. The next is a 4 with a leak. So the 4 goes there face up because it still hasn't filled the box, and I take a special leak counter and put it here in the special damage. Next one's a 3. The 3 adds to the 4. It exceeds my burden, but the extra damage doesn't carry over. So that goes face down, and I receive rudder damage, meaning that my rudder has gone from 5 maneuverability to a 4 maneuverability. I now receive 2 damage and a crew. So we'll take a crew marker, special marker, and mark the crew box. I take another crew damage, mark another crew box, and the 0 goes placed there. That's the first round of movement and combat. I took a beating, but I think I have a trick up my sleeve. So now we take the tokens. I fired my left guns, so the ammunition goes back. This goes back. Now we do it again. This maneuver card, which was pre-planned, moves forward. I choose another maneuver card, place it here for the next turn, always 1 turn in advance of planning. My opponent does the same thing. I now need to pick some actions. In this case, I'm going to swing around and fire my right guns. So I pick that action secretly, fire my right guns, and place that there. I'm also going to fire, I think I'm going to be close enough to fire my muskets, which is this token right here. So I'll go ahead and fire my muskets. But I need to start doing some repair. I have that leak. That's going to put water, so I need to pump. So I'll reach over and use a special pumping action. And then I want to repair that leak. So I'm going to use the repair. This takes 2 turns to do, so I turn it face down. Okay, I've chosen, my movement's ready, my actions are ready, my opponent has done the same thing. We now turn over our actions. First, I apply special damage. I have received water damage. It goes there. Firing is after movement. Repair is a 2-turn action, so that stays face up this turn. I get to pump. I take that action off and remove the special damage. I have not repaired the leak yet, so it will leak next time as well. You'll notice I didn't reload my guns on the left-hand side. I don't have enough actions, so my guns are going to stay unloaded on the right-hand side, but I think I'm going to get a chance to fire. My opponent, by the way, reloaded their right-hand guns, reduced their sales to battle sales, and also initiated a repair action. Their movement at battle sales, they're in the green with the wind, is this action right here. I chose to execute a severe left turn, so we'll lay it down here. Port turn, for those who are watching. Swung around. At this point, we measure for combat. My opponent cannot fire a broadside. They're reloading their guns. I get to fire a full broadside. I have been damaged, so I only get to draw 5 tokens. Reach into the token box. My opponent, 3 damage, 2, 0, 0, and another crew. I'm starting to whittle down their crew a little bit. I also fired muskets because the musket range is approximately the width of the ruler. I'm in range. I draw from the E damage and draw a 0, a 0, and they take 1 more crew damage. Now my opponent chose to fire his muskets at the same time, so since combat is simultaneous, reach into the token box. I take 2 more crew damage. This is not good news. So now I've taken enough crew damage that I am down to 3 actions. So we'll have to see what happens next turn. So now, combat's done, movement's done. I slide this down. I pre-plan my movement for my next one. I slide it here. I take off my actions, and now I'm reduced to 3 actions. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is continue to repair that leak, so that one stays there. The second thing I'm going to do is continue to pump because it's going to get some more water, and I don't want to be faced with losing yet another box. And the third thing I'm going to do is reload my right guns because I'm going to need those guns. Because these came off when I fired. I'm going to reload my right guns. My opponent, on the other hand, is going to, because they were reloading last time, they're going to fire their right guns, they're going to reduce their sales, and they're going to finish the repair action. Here comes our movement. My movement is at minimal sales because I couldn't change it. I'm sitting in the green just barely. So my pre-planned movement puts me there. My opponent, reducing to minimal sales, comes around because they're in the green, comes around to here. And now fires their guns. This isn't looking good. So as we measure out, we see that I'm not at long range. Excuse me, I'm not in the full broadside, but in the partial broadside. And as we look, partial broadside, as I lay this out, I'm just out of range, so it's going to be long range. So I draw now. The way that combat works is that the HMS Defense at the back angle shoots 4. But because it's raking my stern, which is what it is doing 1 extra damage for every 2 tokens. So 4, 5, 6. So 6 tokens at long range are drawn. In this case, they draw fairly easily. I take a 2, which fills in that, a 2, which fills in that box, a 1, which fills in that box, and another crew damage. Okay? Oh, I always forgot. I had forgot to do the actions. Reload my right, pump out the water, and I get to repair the leak. So the leak comes off. I forgot to do that before we moved. Okay, now my ship is starting to take damage. Next action, since I reloaded, slide this card over, put the next movement down. My opponent does the same thing. I'm going to choose to, at this point, start a repair action against the ship itself. I'm going to try to repair the damage. So I'm going to choose a repair. I only get 3. I'm also going to fire my right guns because I loaded them last time. And I'm going to maintain sails at minimal sails so I can come around. My opponent is going to reload their right guns. Let me show you what my movement is. Minimal sails, I'm in the green, I come around right there. Looks like I'll get a shot off. My opponent, though, is in the red. You can see the line that crosses the red. That means that they were going to play the 7 card to swing to the right. But they're in the red. So what they have to do instead is find the red corresponding card that says anything greater than a 6 and play the 1 hourglass. So they play this maneuver, which is similar. They're still turning, but because they're into the wind, they lose a lot of that momentum. So they turn into the wind. I fire. Long range, full broadside, and it looks like I catch my opponent full broadside. At this point, I have 5 tokens full broadside. I damage their sails, which doesn't do any effect on the first turn. I inflicted yet another crew. I've hit 3 and they catch on fire, a 0 and a 1. So I've started to hurt my opponent a little bit. That would go into their boxes. Next, I'm going to choose to maintain my minimal sails. This slides over. Another maneuver is picked in. The repair is going to stay, and I'm going to reload my right again. Because now I'll start to repair some damage. My opponent does the same thing. We now flip over our tokens. I'm reloading on the right. So I put the combat on the right. My opponent chose a maneuver a 5, but because they're still into the wind, they have to find the corresponding 5, and it actually pushes them, because it's the second time they've been in the red, it pushes them backwards to right there. My maneuver at minimal sails swung me around, and they get to fire if I'm in range. And as we measure the range out, yes, long range, full broadside. They're still doing 5 tokens of damage. And so 5 tokens of damage come against me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At this point, I take another point of damage here, but I take another crew damage. And I take yet another crew damage. I'm now down to 2 actions. Okay, we've ran through a scenario. I messed up just a little bit, but you can kind of get a gist. At this point, my ship is down to minimal crew, which I can't replace. I can't repair. I'm downwind. My opponent's on fire, but it still has a tremendous amount of firepower. I'm going to choose the better part of valor, raise my shields, and take off running. Hopefully this has been helpful to explain how Sails of Glory with standard and advanced rules works with combat, maneuvering, and actions.